Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Debt on there, I didn't even know where it came from.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, my poor mother had to take money out of my name because to be able to pay bills and support their lives, even though they were making tons of money coming in their practice. It was they're bleeding money in taxes, fees, loans, all this stuff. And it was just an awful situation. And once I kind of got over the shock of it and tried to figure things out, I said, this can never happen to me in my life. It won't. Right. So I'm going to learn everything I can and evolve my own sort of finances. So this can never happen to me. So it did, like, their misfortune drove me to sort of focus very heavily on it in my life.
Just real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to ask you this. So your parents had this practice, medical practice, right? They had this practice and they were making tons of money. And I think there's an important lesson here. Okay. And that's why I'm asking. Your parents had this practice, and from the outside looking in, they're incredibly successful, right? Tons of money coming in. They're paying tons of money in taxes. Okay. I think it's important that people understand that making tons of money and then paying tons of money in taxes is not necessarily the road to success. And what I mean by that is this: as you go up in income, the percentage of your income goes up in taxes. Okay. So the amount of income you pay, the amount of income you make that you pay in taxes continues to escalate. Okay. Now, the idea behind it is you implement strategies that help to reduce what that tax number is, right? So what that percentage of the income is, and you do it through investments and you do it through ways of sheltering your money. I know we'll talk about this, but I want to make sure I lay the groundwork for this, because this is something that not only did your parents not, there are a lot of people that are listening to this that don't quite grasp this. Okay. And I've met people, and you have too, I guarantee you, that make $1 million or $2 million a year. Okay. And they end up bankrupt. And you literally, I mean, and the only thing that happened was they kept paying taxes. And the more they made, the less, right? And all of a sudden it was, so I'm going to share something with you very quickly, if it's okay. Yes. I had a major flashpoint in my life many years ago now, probably 30 years ago. I played in a celebrity charity golf tournament. Okay. No idea why I was there. I'm not a celebrity. I just, somebody canceled at the last minute and they invited me to go. And so I went, and I was sitting, and I sat down at the assigned table at dinner after the golf tournament. And this guy is sitting across the table from me, and he says, are you Mike Litton? And I said, yeah. He said, you're the Mike Litton that owns Keller Williams? And I said, yes, sir. Keller Williams Realty is a company, a real estate office, right? Yep. And franchise. Yeah. And so I said, yes, sir. And he said, you mind if I tell you my real estate story? I said, I'm all ears. Right. And so he tells me his real estate story. This is a guy who has 14 retail stores, 14, where I used to go. It's called Cal Stores. I used to go and get my jeans and my t-shirts, and I love this place. The prices were amazing. It was the coolest place on the planet. They had 14 of them.
Wow.
Goes to his doctor, and his doctor says, you are a walking stroke. Your blood pressure is through the roof. Now, here's what happened. He grew into 14 locations. And by the time everything was done, taxes were paid, payroll was paid, rent, everything was paid. There were months that he didn't have money left for his family. 14 stores, okay? And that wears on you. And it basically, he got to a point where his physician said, you know what, you have to go do something. Literally, you're going to die if you don't go do something where you check out and you don't think about it anymore. So what is it that you can do where you can escape and you don't think about work? He said, I've always wanted to get my pilot's license. He goes, go do it. So he goes out to a local airport here in Carlsbad, Palomar Airport, getting his license, getting ready to do his first solo. He's walking around this Cessna 172, checking everything, doing the walk around, right? The visual before he take off. And this private jet lands. And private jets are loud, right? And when a private jet would land, he'd always look when the door would open to see if it was a celebrity getting off the thing, right? This guy gets off and it was his coworker from 25 years prior. They were both buyers for a major, seriously, they were both buyers for a major clothing store, okay? That shall remain nameless, unfortunately, but big company everybody's heard of, okay? And guy gets off the plane and he goes, oh my goodness, he runs over, shakes his hand, they talk for a second, and he goes, hey, let's go have lunch and catch up. So they go to lunch, they catch up, and he says, he asked him, he said, so whose jet was that? He goes, that's mine. Okay. He goes, I had 12 clothing stores. This is the guy he worked with. I had 12 clothing stores and I closed all of them up. I bought all the real estate that those 12 clothing stores were in, closed them down, and then re-rented the real estate out to other people that own clothing stores, right? And now he has blood pressure that's the best it's ever been. He's wealthier than he's ever been. He sleeps at night and he owns his own jet. Okay. So this guy decides, I'm going to do the same thing. All 14 stores get closed. He buys all 14 buildings. And when I sat with him to have dinner that night, he was in escrow on his jet.
Right?
Seriously. Here's the deal. Here's the difference. Okay. He was making all this money and he was paying all this money in taxes. It was all going out the door. Now, all the money he makes, you ready for this? All the money he makes is 100% tax-free. Do you have any idea what kind of a raise that is for people? Right? Because some of these people, we're talking 30, 40, 50% tax rates, okay? If you don't strategize and you don't implement things, I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago, they were absolutely raking Jared Kushner and his family over the coals for the fact that they hadn't paid a dime in income taxes in years, like decades. It's because they invested in real estate and they had enough in the way of depreciation to offset their earnings. Okay. They make money a different way and they use real estate to help protect their wealth. Okay. And I'm not suggesting that that's what you do, but what I'm saying is I want people to be thinking when they're listening to you about your strategies and what it is that you're doing. I want people thinking about just making more money and paying more taxes is an absolute road to destruction. It's a road to having what happened to your parents happen to you, right? And it's so unbelievably important that people start thinking differently about, and it doesn't have to be real estate. It just has to be something where they're protecting their wealth. And if you look at the tax code, there's two things that are the most incentivized things in the tax code. Owning a corporation and having employees is number one by far. And number two is owning rental real estate and renting it out. Okay. I feel like this is an incredibly important conversation that we're having. And I want people to pay attention. That's why I'm doing this. I want people to pay attention to what we're going to talk about, because what you do saves fortunes, but it also saves lives. And it's important that, I don't know how to say this, it's important that people listen, okay, and be open to strategies that the wealthy use every day. And a lot of them use it so well that they never pay a dime in income tax. I had a client walk into my Keller Williams office years ago. He was 70 years old. And he said, when you grow up, I want you to be just like me. And he had his wife go, he's from Florida. He had his wife go out and get his tax returns out of his car. He was paying cash for this duplex that his kid was in. I didn't need his taxes. He just wanted to share. He just wanted to show me. His wife nearly started crying watching him show me his tax return and show me how he makes money here, but he has depreciation here, right? He's walking me through his Schedule E. I'm not joking. This actually happened. He's walking me through his Schedule E, and he's like, look, I used to make $1 million a year as a physician, right? But I paid over half of it in taxes. And he lived in Florida where there's no state income
Nope,
tax.
state tax. Yeah.
Okay. And he said, listen, he goes, if I hadn't had a buddy that I played golf with that was a commercial real estate broker and another buddy that was a banker, I would not be where I am today. We went out to play golf one day and the two of them ganged up on me and said, you need to go build a hospital. And he just looked at him like you were nuts, right? Because here he is like 3 years into his practice, but he's on the golf course and he's complaining about the hospital where his residency is because the ceiling tiles are falling down. Ceiling tiles made of asbestos, thank you very much, are falling down into the hospital beds with the patients in the hospital beds, okay? And they have to work, and there's mold in the building. They have to work there every day, okay? These two guys, if it hadn't have been for them, he'd have never done this. But these two guys said, look, we're going to go find you a piece of land and I'm going to get you the loan. And you're going to go to the administrative board and you're going to get a lease signed. They're going to lease this building from you before you ever get financing or ever break ground. And you, our dear friend, are going to be wealthy beyond belief. And you'll be at a point where you don't actually have to pay taxes. At the time, he didn't quite get it, right? But now that he's 70, which is like 30 some years later, right? He's like, this is what you need to do. So I want people to listen to what you're talking about because it's incredibly important. And by the way, it's not something that's broadcast. Okay? People don't talk about this. And if you're not fortunate like you or me, where you can hang out with people that are millionaires, that want to grab you by the ear and go, when you grow up, be just like me, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know how to explain it except that God has blessed me with a lot of people that have crossed my path that are incredibly successful. And they've all just been dying to tell me their story. It's part of why we do this podcast, because people want to tell you their story. You with me?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the process that took you into what you're doing, and then talk about what you do and talk about specifically how it helps people preserve their wealth.
Yeah, and like you said, you're spot on, and we could talk about taxes for sure in the context of this but it's a symbol of other things because there's a lot of things that are basically stripping people's wealth that sometimes they don't even realize it's happening, right?
It's a very quiet killer.
Yeah,
right?
And that tax is definitely aspects of it. Interest to financial institutions, fees, like you can name it. There's a lot of things that are ripping money away from us. So when I started learning more about this, I was following the typical path, right, as most people are doing, putting money just in the stock market, throwing money into qualified plans. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what your Dave Ramsey's would tell you to do. And when you step back from it, you say, okay, there's good aspects of it. You're at least putting money away. It's for a future, but it's keeping control of those dollars. And that's what a lot of institutions want to do. They want to control your dollars for as long as possible. Are
Right.
they bad people? No, they're just smart business people, right? They want to control access to capital. That is the most important thing. And how do you do that? Well, you have to protect it from things like taxes, but also you got to put them into strategies and products that allow you access freely to use them whenever you want, right? So that's when I started learning more about this, and I saw the crash in 2000, correction in 2008, and I'm like, God, my advisor didn't tell me anything, right, about or prepare me. I'm exposed, and I said, this is kind of what life is going to be like, right? And I said, well, that's when you start asking, like, ask, what are these other people doing? What are the wealthiest people doing? They're not doing this. That I know for sure. What else are they doing? So you start learning that they're investing in businesses, they're doing real estate, they're controlling more of their wealth. So I started learning more about that just out of just sheer interest and curiosity. Like you said, what are other people doing? Now you can just throw in the AI, they'll tell you everything. But like
Right.
in ChatGPT, this is tell you all you need to know. But at the time, you didn't know. I'm just reading a bunch of books, came things like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and all these things that were never introduced to me early on, and just kind of was consuming massive amounts of information and figuring things out and learning. And the one thing I do remember very early on when I first saw this, and so I had all the losses in 2008, and I said, "Well," I looked in my this other account I had, it didn't lose, and it just keeps on growing. And I was like interested in it, and it was something people tell you never to put money in to is life insurance,
Mhm.
right? And I saw this, and all it did was grow. It never loses. It just goes one direction. And I said, "What do I do with this?" Oh, you can actually leverage that money to do other things? And I started learning that and digging into that, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is a whole whole 'nother world,"
Mhm.
right? And then I started learning how to use that for real estate investing, to loaning money out, and so you just this whole thing, as it started going, I started realizing this is how people are becoming wealthy. They're leveraging other people's money like the banks do, and put them into assets that they can own and control,
Mhm.
right? The more you know about an investment, the lower risk it comes because you are smarter. You know these things. If you want to hand it off, then you're at risk because you don't have control of that asset or that
Right.
investment. So things like you're talking about, getting to know your business, your real estate, things that you can control, absolutely a place where you got to have more of your money, right?
Mhm.
Most people have money that it's handed off 3, 4 arms length away. You can't control what that company's doing. You don't
Right.
even know who operates that company, most
Right.
people, right?
Right.
You don't know the company's in that mutual fund, but
Mhm.
that's what we are taught and trained and indoctrinated to do, right? Am I saying don't have any assets there? No, but I would rather you spend more money on personal development, building your network, buying real estate, and starting businesses. And you know what the funny part is? The government actually wants you to do these things,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
want you to start businesses. They want you to own real estate. They want to invest in energy production. They want you to give to charities. That's why they give you tax benefits and
Mhm.
credits because you're doing the work that they can't do,
Right.
right? Right? They don't have a job. They don't make money,
Right.
right? But they need people to house people. They need people to employ people. So those are the things that the wealthy are doing,
Yeah.
right? That's why they get these benefits and obviously make a lot of money. So those are the types of things I started learning about that I said, "Oh my goodness, this whole world was never in my vantage point," right? Never understood it. And so those are the types of things I start sharing with people just to give them a different lens. What if you didn't have a bank? Where else would you store money, right? That's private and protected. Well, it's another option,
Mhm.
right? Where did you invest outside the stock market? Like you said, real estate, businesses, you name it. There's a whole host of things. It just requires people to be a little bit more curious and open-minded about it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the stuff that I help share and enlighten people about, right? And it may not be right for them, but at least they're aware of it. What they do with
Well,
it is
it's an
obviously
option,
there. Yeah, it's an option.
right? And everybody needs to look at what their options are. And you're right. It may not be something that works for them today, but it might be something that they park in the recesses of their mind and think, hey, you know what, in 5 years when this and this happens, I need to do this too. That type of thing. So, I'm a big believer that you look at what the wealthy are doing and follow it. And so a lot of what you're talking about is exactly what the wealthy are doing. They're just not talking about it. They're not shouting it from the rooftops,
Right.
right? Very quietly, they're making money while they sleep. Okay. So years ago, I grew up on a farm in Oklahoma, and I was 5 years old, and I had been on this farm since I was just a few weeks old, brand new. And for some reason, there was a my grandfather had oil wells on his place, and there was a two-cycle motor on one that was out west of the house, and the tailpipe had no muffler on it. The tailpipe pointed towards the house. When it would turn, you've seen them do this, right?
Yeah.
When the cycle would turn, the weights would take over and it would come down. When it came down, it backfired. Every single time it made a revolution, it backfired. And for some reason, at 5 years old, it scared me. And so I got up in the middle of the night, went in and crawled in bed with Granddad and Grandma. Next morning, Granddad said, "Hey, what happened last night? Why'd you crawl in bed with us?" And I said, "Well, that pumping unit out there scared me. How is it that you can sleep at night with that thing popping all night?" He said, "Let me put it to you this way. If that thing's not popping, Granddad isn't sleeping." Right? Because every time that thing pops, he makes money. And by the way, he had 11 of them. Okay.
Wow.
He had 11 of them. My grandfather's an honest to goodness American success story. He started out as a sharecropper, one of the poorest of the poor. Okay. And 8th grade education, the whole thing, right? And ends up buying a place, in northern Oklahoma, which was just awful to the family because the family's from Kansas. But he buys a place in north central Oklahoma that's under 3 feet of water, and it's farmland. How do you farm under 3 feet of water? The answer is you don't. You don't even farm rice in 3 feet of water. Okay, you can't do it. So all the locals thought it was funny. They thought it was hilarious. They laughed at him, but he got it for a song, got it for pennies on the dollar because it was underwater. Yeah. And he went out with his two bottom plow and tractor and carved ditches so that it would drain naturally. So he redid the topography. Okay, got it drained and farmed it. And when he bought the place, there were 12 oil wells on it, and they were doing their thing. You've seen all these, right? They were pumping units. Yeah. And so Sunoco Oil had the oil rights, and they were the operator. They were operating these wells. Couple of like maybe 10 years after he bought the place, he paid his mortgage off because they didn't trust banks back then. He grew up during the Great Depression, right? This guy from Sunoco comes to see him and says, "Listen, we've got all these huge oil wells offshore and all these different places. These wells do not do what we need them to do anymore. They're not worth our time. So we're coming out as a courtesy because you're the landowner to let you know that we're going to cap these wells. And once we cap them, you can farm across the roads that we have set up and all that. It's yours. It's your land, right?" And my grandfather said, "So it's not worth your time to operate them anymore, right?" And he said, "Yeah." Granddad said, "So," and this is Granddad being curious, right? "So what do they produce?" And the guy told him, and the guy referred to them as stripper wells, which is a lower echelon of production, right? And so he asked him, he said, "So what would it cost you to cap all these things and take all this equipment off?" And he said, "I don't know the number, but I can find out." Granddad said, "Why don't you find out and then find out what your company would take for me to just buy the mineral rights from you and all the pumping units and the equipment, tank batteries, everything, just the whole thing so you don't have to move it." So the guy comes back and he gives him a number. And my granddad says, "I'll take it." Goes back to the banker that's been pounding on him to give him a mortgage and says, "I need a loan so I can buy all these pumping units." The banker immediately puts a lien on the farm, right? And loans my grandfather the money. My grandfather bought these wells for less than 10 cents on the dollar. Okay. And then not long after he bought them, we had the oil embargo of the 70s, and we had all the crazy stuff happen with the cost of oil and oil per barrel and all that kind of thing. That man in 1976 or 77 on one oil well made $193,000 in a year. One oil well. He had paid off the mortgage. He was free and clear. Okay. And he did really, really, really well on assets that were, for lack of a better term, distressed. Okay. Everything he bought was distressed. And the man became a millionaire with an 8th grade education, sharecropper. Okay. The fact of the matter is this: the wealthy are buying oil wells. Okay. They're buying pumping units. They're buying all the, my granddad didn't know that. He just knew that this guy from Sunoco came to talk to him. That's all. Right. I mean, right. And he did the numbers in his head. He did the math in his head and he thought, okay, this makes perfect sense. We could do this. Right. And so, and those literally produced for the rest of his life. They're still producing today. My grandfather passed away in 2007, and they're still producing and they're still paying his heirs.
It's incredible.
Okay.
It's incredible.
I don't even know the number. I have no idea how much they produced over the years, but I guarantee you it was worth that investment way back when. Okay. So here's the point I'm getting at. Stay curious, stay open to other opportunities, stay open to other ways to preserve and build your wealth. Okay. Because there are other ways to do it. And there are ways that the ultra wealthy are doing that nobody talks about. You found out by accident, right? It just so happened that 2008 hit, and you're looking at your insurance product and going, hey, what just happened here?
Yeah. Well, why? How come no one tells me this? And even advisors don't know about it.
Right.
And so it's quite amazing, to your point, in the curiosity piece, because that is what I have come to realize with a lot of people, is that they have, quote unquote, arrived, and they can't learn anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't want to learn anymore. It takes effort. Yes, it does. However, it's all there to learn.
Yeah.
And if you're getting around the right types of people too, that's why the combination, like to connect our conversation, having the right people around you, the ones who are also curious and are willing to learn things, you're going to be put in a position to win.
Yeah.
Right. And versus things happening to you, you can find these things, and you got to be in the way of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I stress that with my kids so much, because I don't know when it's going to happen for them, where they see things, but you got to be exposed to a lot of things and be willing to have conversations like you're holding with people to just learn.
Yeah.
Right. Because something might come about. And so when I was leaving Pfizer, I said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and helping other people discover these things. Right. Because they were never taught to me and shared with me by the masses of around all these different advisors. Right. And so now my job is to at least bring that to people's attention, for people who want more, right? They want to do more for their families. Like, I run across people that they're like, I don't want to give anything to my kids because I need it for me. I said, well, you've got to think differently if you want to do both, right? I'm an and guy. I don't like making these choices, or how can we do this and that? Right. You got to think creatively, right? And be open to it. And so there's a lot of ways to do it. But you got to learn. Right. And it took a while. To your point, I just didn't happen overnight.
Right.
Right. It took a while, and I'm still learning. Like, it's never going to end for me, because I enjoy it. And when I help people fulfill what they're trying to do in their lives, what they want to do for their children, what charities they want to give to us, like, to me, that's way more impactful. We'd rather give it to the IRS, or give it to your family, or or your favorite charity. Right.
Well, it should never end. It should absolutely never end. Right. And we're going to put a link to your website, your company's website, on your description for the podcast. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I cannot thank you enough. This has been a lot of fun.
This is awesome, Mike. I really appreciate meeting you, and thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.